Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's DAF. Bava Metzia, DAF Mem. We are holding out the Mishnah, which is around 10 lines off the top of the Amud. Says the Mishnah, Hamafgid Peiros Eitzel Chaveroi. So Peiros, once again, refers to any type of produce, wheat, grains, fresh fruit. So in any case, if a person is mafkid Peiros with his friend, listen to this. When he returns the product, he will deduct by estimating how much is typically lost, spoiled, eaten by the mice or whatever. So he only gives them back his amount minus that natural loss. That's what we call chesroinus, the missing portions. He can deduct for losses. And the Mishnah presents a formula, a set formula established by the Chachamim. And this is going to be a certain rate per kur. A kur is 30 sa'ah, and it's an annual rate of sort of depreciation, right? So it's like a deterioration rate for all these things. And each one has its own separate formula. For instance, you gave him wheat, you gave him rice. How much will you deduct per year? Per kur, you take off 9 half kav, so it's basically 4.5 kav. Barley and doichan, some say is millet. Tisha kaban lekur. There you lose more, 9 kab per kur per year. Lukusmin uzer pishtan for spelt and flax seeds. Shalosh sin lekur, 3 sa'ah is deducted per kur per year. Hakar lefni amida, so it's all according to the quantity. Basically, this is a per kur quantity, a rate. Vakar lefi azman, and according to the duration, meaning it's an annual rate of a depreciation. Amar Bichman Nuri, I don't understand. V'chima ichpas lohen lachbarim. You say it's per kur, right? This accounts for losses resulting from mice, right? The mice tend to eat a certain amount. To them, it makes no difference whether the storeroom is half full or fully full. What do the mice care? How much stuff you have? They eat the same amount, whether you have a small storeroom or a large storeroom. Rather, says Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, we don't go per kur, right? Because it's a standard rate of loss, whether you have a lot or a little, right? Rather, you only deduct a 1 core loss. So 9.5 kavs or all that. It's a one-time number. And it's applied to the full amount, irrespective of how much it is. One more halacha. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, im hayisam mida meruba. If he deposited a large quantity, in that case, you don't get any deductions. Why? Because it's going to expand and grow. We'll see in the Gemara how this works. And that compensates for any losses. Asks the Gemara, Oirez, right? The rate for rice was 9 half kav, so basically 4.5 kav. Oirez tu v'choser. Typically, you lose more than just that amount. Amar Rabba Barachana, Amar B'yechon, Ba'oirez kol of shana, was speaking about peeled, shelled, right? So here, apparently the mice are not so interested and they eat much less. Lukusman ul zera pishtan, gimel sa'aran lukur. Amar Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Chia, zera pishtan, begivaylin shanu. The reason why you lose so much of the pishtan is because we're speaking that the seeds are within the stalks, and Rashi explains that it tends to dry up and shed, so you're going to end up losing a lot throughout the duration of this time. We find the same explanation in the Brisa. Lukusmin ul zera pishtan begiv oilan, so we stress that it's within the stalk. And now the Brisa adds another point. Unpeeled rice, which is different than the Mishnah's case. In all these, we say shloisha se'in is the loss per kur l'kur. Hakal fi amida tana. What do you mean it's all according to quantity? It means it's a rate per kur. Tana, kein chol kur v'kur. And also it's an annual rate. V'chein chol shana v'shana. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, how could quantity affect the rate of loss? Tanya. So Chacham responded, Amrullah, Rabbi Yechanan. Well, there are other factors, other reasons for depreciation. Not only the mice. You're right. Your point pertains to mice, but harbe oivdos mehen, much is lost by the wayside. Harbe mispazers mehen, a lot gets dispersed. Right. So basically, the more you have, the larger the loss. It's a percentage per amount. Tana, we learned to the Bryce. Why do we even have to deduct all this? Look, you took a pound of wheat, give him back whatever you have. Right? It's his stuff. You don't have to go calculate anything. The answer is like this. Tana b'medav amrum. When does the Mishnah apply all these rates of depreciation? When the original volume is no longer discernible. She'irvan in peroisa, because he mixed it together. The fellow took his friend's produce and mixed it with his own. So now we have no idea how much is his, how much is mine. Aval yichud like keren zavis. But let's say he designated, you put your stuff in the corner. So when the time comes, you just give it back to him as is, with no need to calculate or deduct, right? Here's your item, take it back. Asks the Gemara, what do you mean? But let's say he did mix it with his own stuff. Who cares? Make a simple reckoning. Look, I had a pile of wheat in that corner. I had a pound of wheat in that corner. I added your pound, right? So basically, we know 50% is yours, 50 mine. Who cares, right? We don't have to go calculate. We're speaking that I'm using it. I'm supplying myself from that pile. So now we have no idea. What do you mean? Figure out how much you took and deduct that relative to the proportional amounts. He has no idea how much he took. So now we're sort of in limbo. We have no idea. All we know is that you got a certain amount, and the Mishnah dictates to us how much he has to return. If you got a large amount, then it accounts for any losses. It compensates for any losses. What does that mean, midah meruba? What size quantity are we speaking? Amar Rabba, Barbachana, Amar B'yachan, Asara Kurin, 10 Kur. Tani Nami find the same in the Brisa. Kama midah meruba, what constitutes a large amount? Asara Kurin. Tani Kamei Rav Nachman. So a Chacham presented a Brisa to Rav Nachman in explanation of Rabbi Yehuda's idea. But when does Rabbi Yehuda say the Shemer cannot deduct anything? Shemodad loy mitach garnoi. So the Gemara at this point figures, Rashi explains that in the homes, the household measuring utensils tended to be generally smaller, a little bit smaller in size than the farm measuring devices. So the point here is that if you use the same measuring devices, he deposited his wheat, let's say, using the measuring utensils that they employ in the geirin, out in the granary, and he gave it back to him using the same measuring containers. So now we know that there's no fluctuation, and he's entitled to deduct according to the formula of the Mishnah. But suppose when the owner delivered his items way back when, he used the geirin measures. But then when he retrieved his produce, the shemer returned it to him using local household, smaller sized utensils. So then he's getting back less. By default, he's getting back less than he gave. So then, so in this case, there's no reason to deduct anything because you're already giving him less than he gave you, which accounts for that loss, for that depreciation, right? Because you're giving him back using a smaller measuring cup. Because the ones out in the granary are bigger, and now he's getting less, so that accounts for any depreciation. So Rav Nachman responded to this Chacham who presented this formula. We're speaking about people that are deranged, are not, paying attention. Why would a person use this type of measuring cup when he deposits it, and a different one when he picks it up, right? The Yavi b'kaila rabba, they deliver it using a large utensil, v'shakli b'kaila zuta, and they take it back with a smaller one. That wouldn't make any. That's not. That must not be the pshat in the mission. That's not the case. Rather, dilma b'meisa chamakamas. Perhaps you mean like this. You mean like this. It's a question of seasons. And the Brisa meant like this. When do we say that you're entitled to deduct as per the Mishnah's depreciation formulas? That when he gave it to him during the goyren, meaning when is the farming season, during the harvesting season, the summer, and he got it back in similar fashion during summertime, maybe 5 years later, but during summertime. So pretty much his wheat is in the same state, the same level of moisture in the wheat, etc. So it's pretty much an equal trade. And now, as we explained, the farmer has a right to deduct as per the Mishnah formula to account for depreciations. But suppose he delivered it during summertime, when the wheat isn't that moist, it tends to be more like shriveled. And he gets it back during winter time when it's wet and moist and more plump. So now So now the farmer cannot, the shomer cannot deduct anything. You know why? Because it's really an illusion. He's not really giving him back the same amount. Because they expand during winter time. So he's really giving him back technically less. So even though it looks like it's a pound per pound, but today's pound is really less than a pound because it has to account for the expansion and the moisture. So automatically you have already deducted as per the Mishnah. And Taisus explains that Rabbi Yehuda, when he says Amida Meruba accounts for any chesroinus, meaning the expansion of Amida Meruba covers the chesroinus, Taisus says it covers the chesaron of one kur. So basically, if you were dealing with a large amount of 10 kur and you took it during the summer and returned it during the winter, so that expansion factor accounts for the rate of loss of a kur, right? But let's say we're dealing with instead of 10 kur, it was only 8 kur, 7 kur. So of course it has to be in proportion and according to the right. So you got to calculate how that works. If that's so, that during the winter time the grains expand, so why doesn't the pitcher, the container containing the grain, just burst because of that pressure? And in fact, says the Gemara, in fact, it was such a story that the container burst. Another pshat, why sometimes it doesn't, because it's so squished in, so it doesn't allow for expansion. Just as we have this deduction policy regarding grain, and so it applies to wine and oil as well. So if I took your wine and put it into my barrels, I give it back to you, I can I can deduct a sixth, which is standard rate of loss due to the wine's absorption into my containers. Rabbi Yehuda Mechaimish, only a fifth is deducted. Why? The Gemara will explain. Regarding oil, there we have absorption as well. Let's say I received 100 lug from you, and I give it back, it's 97. Why? Why do you lose 3? Lug mechza shmar, lug mechza bella. So 1.5 is bella for the absorption, and 1.5 lug, which turned into lees, into shmarin, which settled to the bottom of the barrel. So ultimately, I can deduct that because that was part of your. It was mixed into your oil when you gave it to me. Okay. Now, let's say it was purified oil without any shmarim. So you can't deduct for the shmarim because he didn't give you shmarim. Likewise, if the barrels that I put your oil into were old, fully saturated barrels, I don't have the absorption factor. Likewise, if somebody has a contract to sell oil, kol yimes hashana, and it turns out that you give it to him bit by bit. So by the time he gets it, the shmarim, the leaves, the residue had already settled to the bottom. So now the buyer can't insist that the seller gives him 100% pure oil, because part of that oil that he purchased way back at the beginning of the contract had residue in it. He has to allow the seller to deduct for that. As we said, it's 1.5 lug per 100. So in the beginning of the Mishnah, we said the nifgad, the shomer, can deduct a sixth of the wine or a fifth of the wine. The machlekes is not really a fact, conceptual machlek. It's just a practical issue. Marki Asrei, the Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda, respectively speaking about their locale, which means Basri de Mar Chofa Bekira. In the Tanakama's locale, they would smear the inside of the barrels with kira, with wax, which made it less absorbent, and it did not really absorb that much, so you can only deduct a lesser amount, Basri de Mar. Whereas in Rabbi Yehuda's location, Chofa Bekufra, they would smear the inners of their barrels with tar, which would absorb more. Hence, the larger, greater depreciation rate, absorption rate. Another reasons for this discrepancy, which pertains to the material which was used to make the barrel. Mishum gargishta, the material used to make the barrel, the earth, whatever, in the Tanakama's area, it did not really absorb that much, whereas in Rabbi Yehuda's place it did. Says the mother, there was a story regarding Rabbi Yehuda. V'asri Rabbi Yehuda Ramu Arbaim B'tam Nikuzi B'dam. Rabbi Yehuda, apparently according to Rashi, Rabbi Yehuda was a cherveni, a grocer who would sell wine. So in his place, Ramu Arbaim V'tam Nikuzi. Kuzi is a small container. So 48 of those would fill up a barrel b'dam. Okay, so a barrel contains 48, quarts, let's say, right? Liters. Ozal dana b'shita zuzi. Now during the crush season, when they would produce the wine, so a barrel would sell for 6 zuz. A full barrel, which contains 48 of these liters, is worth 6 zuz. Now, Rabbi Yehuda took it to his place and sold it at retail, right? Parash Rabbi Yehuda shita bezuzah. So he would sell this dana, this barrel, using the following rate: 6 kuza per zuz, shita bezuzah. Okay, so wholesale he got it for 6 for the entire barrel, and now he's selling 6 zuz per barrel. Now he's selling a barrel which contains 48 kuza, 6 kuza per zuz. Okay, so how much did he make on it? Dal tlosim b'shita. So basically, let's first deduct his expense, right? The expenses was 6. So that accounts for 36 kuza, because 6 kuza was sold for a zuz. So in order to get back your expenses, you have to sell 36. Dal tlosim b'shita. So the first 36 was simply to account for the 6 zuz that he paid for. Pashul tresa. He's left with 12 more out of the 48. That's like sort of for profit, right? Dal tmanya shtusit. First of all, he's losing a 6 because of the absorption process. So that takes care of 8 out of 48. He's left with merely 4 liters for profit. Pashul abo, which is really a very small profit margin. V'amar Shmuel tells us you can earn more. Even when we speak about livelihood related items. Hamistakar. The person who's in the business, al yistaka yesal shtus. He shouldn't be making more than a 6th when speaking about things which are, vitally needed. Rashi says, dvarim sheyesh b'hem chaye nefesh. Vital, ingredients like wine apparently was a very important. So, not more than a 6, but you should make a 6. So why do you only make 4 zuz per 48? Ikaguf yishmaraya. Truth is, he made more because he had the containers that he kept. He had the residue, which somehow is resold. Okay, so in that case, you flipped it around. He's making more than a 6th. You could tirche with meibers and isa, but there are other factors to consider. What about his efforts, his time, his tircha, and the money it takes to advertising expenses? Okay, so if it's refined oil that you got as a pikotan, you can't deduct anything for the lees, because there is no residue to speak of. So, and the Mishnah continues, right? But if it's old barrels, which you put your friend's oil into, you can't account for absorption. But it's impossible. There is no absorption at all. Yeah, we're speaking about fully smeared, tarred, waterproof barrels, no absorption at all. Even if it's not really fully tarred, given the tone, once it's absorbed, it's fully saturated, it's not going to accept anymore. So bottom line, now we're going to the commercial side of things, right? So you have a contract to forward, 100 lug of shemen to this fellow, bit by bit, throughout the year. So the buyer has to be reasonable. He has to allow the seller. He has to allow for a lug and a half of shmarim per 100. Right? So basically, if he wants refined oil, you have to be aware of the fact that your barrel that had 100 originally had a lug and a half of shmarim. You don't want the shmarim was in there. You don't have to accept it, but don't ask for 100 lug of pure oil. Be ready to accept 98.5. Whereas Chachamim seem to disagree. He has a right to accept a full 100 lug of pure oil. Why? What's the machlekes about? When you analyze their opinions, you conclude as follows. This is the explanation to the machlekes. The divrei Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is based on mutar la'arev shmarim, that when a person sells oil without specifying whether it's going to have shmarim or not, right? And eventually the shmarim, the residue, sinks to the bottom. You're allowed to mix it back in. It's part and parcel of the oil experience. You're allowed to mix the shmarim back in. You don't have to give him pure oil. Mutar la'arev shmarim. And therefore, this seller has full right to remix the shmarim. Now, if you want oil without shmarim, you have to allow for that. You have to deduct for that. You can't expect a full 100 lug of pure oil. Whereas l'divrei Chachamim, their opinion is also la'arev shmarim. No, you can't. The fact is, when you buy oil without specifying, it's pure oil. So therefore, the owner has no right to remix the residue that already sunk to the bottom. And therefore, the buyer doesn't have to account for that. Doesn't have to deduct for that. Doesn't have to absorb that loss. And the Gemara explains, according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, mutar la'arev shmarim. The seller has a right to remix the shmarim into the oil. That explains why the buyer has to absorb that loss. The seller can tell the buyer, look, if I would want to mix it back in, wouldn't I be able to do it? Of course I could. Now, you don't want the shmarim, fine, I'm not forcing it on you, but be ready to deduct for that. Asks the Gemara, why can't the buyer respond to the seller? That's not an argument. Sure, if you would have mixed it in, have him as davening, I would have sold it as one. I would not have experienced any loss, because my buyer would just buy it with the residue inside, and that would sort of inflate the volume, right? What should I do now? It's separate. I can't just take your residue and sell it. On its own, you can't sell residue. If it's mixed in, it goes together, but now it's too late. Answer is, the buyer is not a retailer, he's not a dealer, he's a homeowner for domestic use. He's more than happy to have pure, purified oil. So he can't argue, well, you should have mixed it in, because actually he prefers it this way. Well, he has another argument. You can tell the seller, obviously, the fact is you didn't mix it in, right? So the fact that you didn't mix it indicates that you are meichel. You're not going to deduct for the residue. So why can't he claim that you're a meichel? Answer is, Rabbi follows his shita elsewhere. He holds that unless you actually specify mechila, we don't just assume mechila due to circumstance. We don't do that. That's none. As we find in a similar case, suppose this fellow is a farmer is selling a pair of oxen. He sold him the tzemet. He says, take the tzemet. Tzemet is the oil the hitch, the yoke, which sits on the oxen, and pairs them together. So he sells them the tzemed. We don't assume that the oxen came along. A tzemed is a tzemed, not bakar. He specified I'm selling the animals. It doesn't mean that the tzemed is included in the sale. Take a look at the price. That will indicate what's included. For instance, he approached the farmer. Sell me the hitch for 200 zuz. Now, everybody knows that's overpriced just for a hitch. Of course, it includes the animals. Sheinat tzemed masayim zuz. Right? Of course, it included the animals. And we don't say he's being meichel, right? So he explained that he's being meichel, otherwise it's included. The price doesn't say anything because maybe, he just, the buyer was desperate, he just, threw it in. He was meichel, the extra money. Okay, so that was the answer to the question. You can't say mechila on Rabbi Yehuda because he doesn't hold of mechila unless it was clearly specified. So we explained Rabbi Yehuda. Now, l'dibri chachamim, but according to the chachamim's opinion, in our Mishnah, asul arer shmarim. A seller is not allowed to remix the residue into the oil. That explains why the buyer doesn't have to accept that loss. Because you can tell the seller, even if you would have wanted to mix it back in, would you have been allowed to do that? Of course not. Now I'm not accepting that loss. So that's Abayi's presentation. Rabbi responded, if anything, go the other way around. I want to switch around this explanation. If anything, in the Mishnah, one is allowed to remix the residue before he sells. That explains why in this case the buyer is not accepting the loss. Because you can tell the seller, the fact is you, for some reason, did not mix them back in. That indicated that you're meichel. You're not planning on charging for that. You could have. Why didn't you? Apparently, you're not interested in charge. No, just the opposite. You're not allowed to remix it. That explains why the buyer has to accept it as part of the deal. Because he can tell because the seller can tell the buyer, if I would have wanted to mix it and I couldn't, it wasn't a choice, it wasn't an option. So now I'm stuck with residue. You're not going to accept it on your account. So basically, I'm not going to be making much on this deal because I'm going to have to suffer that loss. So there's an expression, Zovan, when a person buys for $10, Zovan, and sells it for the same amount. Tagar Ikri, that's called a merchant. It's wasting time. So basically, it's not fair if I have to absorb that loss. Continues the Gemara. Tana, we learned in a brayso, we compare a buyer to a mafkid who deposits his oil by his friend lepkatim. So they're equal when it comes to pkatim. Rashi says pkatim are the rough, raw, waste like pits and whatever floating on the oil. Now, what does this mean? That the lekeach and the mafkid are in the same boat pertaining to this factor, the pkatim factor. My lepkatim. What does that mean? Ilema. Shall we say that it means like this? Just like a customer doesn't have to be willing to accept these pits and whatever in his oil. Mafkid nami lemekabel pkatim. So the mafkid as well doesn't have to take back his pkatim. What do you mean? It's his pkatim. So the shemer can tell the mafkid, you're the owner. This is your oil. Take back everything. What does it do with your pits? It's your thing. It's your material. So apparently that's not the pshat. Rather, the correct pshat is like this: the mafkid mekabel pkatim. Just like the owner of the oil, when it comes to retrieve his oil, of course it comes along with whatever was in there, skins and pits. Likewise, a customer will have to take delivery of the pkatim as well in his oil. So Rashi says, if he bought shemen stam without specifying, it comes along with all this, all these trimmings. Really? Does a customer have to accept these things? the only one that loses, the only one that has to absorb this muddled oil situation is the Meicher, the seller. Sharei lekeyach because the customer already deducted from his amount. We said he's meant to deduct 1.5 log per 100 for the residue and everything else. So bottom line is, you can't double charge him for that. Right? He already accepted all these impurities upon himself. He deducted for that. So the Meicher has to give him pure oil. Like Kash, answers like this. Sometimes a customer will absorb that loss, sometimes not. Because Tishrei was when they processed oil. Nisan was the beginning of the selling season, right? So, in the case where he paid for it during Tishrei, which was at a discount, right? Because it was like a pre-season sale. The oil is Tishrei because Shaka Nisan, and he's taking delivery during Nisan time. Kimida the Tishrei, on Tishrei's rate. Now during Tishrei, Rashi explains, Stam Shem, and typically oil is muddled, it's full with residue and all that, right? So now the Lekeach accepted that as part of his deal. It was a wholesale deal. The way it is, as is, right? So there we say the Lekeach accepts that. Oh, but let's say he paid at the higher rate, at the opening of the selling season, during Nisan time. He's taking delivery during Nisan based on the Nisan rate. Here he wants high quality oil. Rashi says typically the shemen during Nisan time is mezukuk. So here he doesn't have to discount the seller for these pekot. He doesn't have to accept impure oil. Okay. So we have one Mishnah which discussed the rate of deterioration per kur, per year, per type of produce. We had Rabbi Yehuda argument, claim regarding the achbarim. The Rabbanan responded. Rabbi Yehuda's chiddush with the seasons. We had the rate of depreciation regarding the oil and the wine, regarding absorption and residues, and we had a whole discussion regarding the amount that the buyer would have to be willing to deduct from his total to account for shmarim. We have Rabbi Yehuda's opinion and the Rabbanan's opinion. All the best to you and Hatzlacha.